Welcome to Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 304. What to offer for managed services. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Our show today is brought to you by Instant House Call, remote support that is easy for you and your customers to use. This is a must-have tool with features like on-demand for your break-fix customers and unattended for managed services. You can do automatic repairs with the built-in software, and it will save you time and money when you are supporting your customers. Check it out for a free trial at instanthousecall.com and use the offer code PODNUTS. And also by Reclaim Me Pro, the all-in-one highly configurable data recovery software for both beginners and experts. For a free 14-day trial, go to reclaimme-pro.com, use the offer code PODNUTS for a 50% discount. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have John Dubinsky from the Maven Group. How you doing, John?
Hey, good to be here.
Good to have you. And also Adam Carpenter from IT Professionals of Iowa. Adam, how you doing?
Great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and share a tip or story that we can learn from. John, it is all yours.
Only two quick tips again this week. Based on our conversation on the last show, I went over and I checked out HD Shredder from Mirai, and I really like it, even more than the previous products that we've discussed on the show. So I jumped on the bandwagon. I bought myself a technician license, and I think that might be my de facto standard from now on, but I'll put some links in the show notes. I just like it because it's just single purpose, easier to use. Not that, help me out, what were we using in the past? Anybody?
Kill Disk.
Kill Disk, thanks. Not that that's bad, and that's still an awesome program and highly recommended, but if you don't need everything that's attached with that, you just need a disk wiping program, check out HD Shredder. Thank you very much.
Do you get a certificate and everything with that as well?
You do.
Cool.
And they do have a free version you can try out that does look fully featured or somewhat fully featured. My other quick tip is I'm a Google Fi user. Couple quick updates. You can use a lot more phones with Google Fi now, including your fun little iPhone, if you're using one of those toys for your cellular service. But just keep in mind, there's a lot of other things you can do with Google Fi as well. And one of the big things that a lot of people forget about is that you can get a free data-only SIM or multiple free data-only SIMs from Google Fi at no charge. Obviously, they eat up your bandwidth and go on your bill. But if you have that tablet you think you might want to throw on the internet once in a while, or even a laptop or something, and you need a SIM, you can grab a free SIM from Google Fi. And I'll put a link in the show note that's got about 5 or 6 or 7 cool, quick little Google Fi tips that you might find handy. That's it for me, Jeff.
That's awesome, John. And just to let you know, good cop, bad cop, I'm the one that's supposed to be offending people, not you.
I just tossed that out there so maybe you wouldn't get all the flack this week.
I appreciate that. Covering me. That's awesome.
Right.
All right. Adam, what do you got for us this week?
So I don't pretend to know hardly anything about this, but it looks like the crypto mining is starting to go down the tubes. So a lot of the big miners are starting to shut down and close up their shops, apparently, from some of the articles I've seen. So apparently the competition got so high that it's really hard to make money at it now. Now, I know there's lots of different variants in those things, but with a lot of the bigger shops going out of business, some of the smaller guys might actually make some money on it now. Because we're talking places with thousands of miners shutting down. So eventually that may make it worthwhile for the small guy. I don't know. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I guess I hope not, because they kind of drove the video card prices through the roof, and it makes it hard for an actual gamers out there to be able to purchase something that will work in their systems.
Well, I'd say you're probably about to see thousands of them on eBay real quick, trying to recoup some of that money.
I actually had there's an electrician friend of mine at work, and he and his sons actually built a couple, I don't know, maybe it might have been something like 4 or 5 rigs for doing this. And they tore them all down, and he said, "Hey, can I get money for these video cards?" I said, "Oh yeah, throw them on eBay or whatever, and somebody will pick them up."
Mm-hmm.
That's still good equipment. You don't really use it for anything other than crunching numbers.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. All right, cool. Yeah, hopefully we'll see. These things all come and go, right? It's a cycle. Okay, so let's talk about my favorite subject, and that is TechCon Unplugged. Why? Because there's several of us that are putting this on and putting it together. And it's going to be just a wonderful time to get together and share with people in our community. And that's what it's all about. But it is September 20th through the 22nd, 2019. It is in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in John's backyard and close to mine. Here's what you're going to get. You're going to get all meals and snacks at the event. Can't ask for anything more than that, man. We want to make sure you're well fed and well taken care of. Also, there's going to be dinner at Dave & Buster's along with a game card to enjoy activities, kind of get you started, playing some maybe competitive games. There's been talk of maybe even doing some competitions. We'll see what happens. We'll see who wants to take charge of that and make that happen. Also, we're going to have good, wholesome IT content with our community invested vendors. That means the vendors that actually care about us, no matter what size we are. That's what we're looking for, is those people to be able to come to us and work with them. Us also being good partners to our vendors, but our vendors being good partners with us. Go to techconunplugged.com to get your tickets and hotel reservations today. Man, you can stay in the same hotel. It's $102 a night. It's going to be an awesome time. You're going to be able to get on the elevator or walk down the stairs, which I would suggest, because I don't like getting stuck in elevators. But walk down the stairs and go to the conference room, and everything's going to be right there. The only time that we'll have to walk anywhere, yes, I said walk, because it's a 6-minute walk to Dave & Buster's. I think everybody can handle that, and it'll be a good time. And if not, no big deal, because you can hop in your car and drive down there if you'd like. So either way, you will be well taken care of. And we also have beginning of the year, we've got a committee that's coming together and is starting to put content together. And then obviously we've got the community of all of us that are helping to, there's a lot of people that reached out to us in the beginning and said, hey, I want to help. And we're going to be utilizing a lot of those people and a lot of what they bring to the table as far as their expertise, because we all as a community don't know everything individually, but as a community, we know we've got a lot of information we can put together. And that's the strengths that we're going to work on, is bringing all that information together so we can all grow. Again, a rising tide raises all ships. So I'm excited about it. It's going to be a great time. It's only nine and a half months away. Not even that, maybe 9.25 months away, something like that. So, but anyways, we would love to see everyone there. Definitely go to techconunplugged.com and get your tickets today. And before we get into our main topic, one of the things I want to let everybody know is this is actually the last show of the year. And I didn't even let these gentlemen know before I said that. But I was looking at the calendar, and yes, we have 2 holiday weekends that we're taking off before Christmas, before New Year's, kind of enjoy the family and time and festivities with our loved ones, and just take that time and relax. And so we're going to come back strong January 6th. So that's going to be our first show, and it's already set up. We have actually Untangled coming on the show and sharing what it is they do with their devices and software and stuff. So for those of you that are familiar with Untangle, that'll be interesting. And for those that don't know anything about it, it'll be really interesting, because I'm excited to hear what they can do to help me in my business. So,
hey, a little shout out to Paco LeBron there, right? He set that up.
Absolutely. Paco does pretty much everything in the background. As a matter of fact, speaking of, this particular topic was brought to us by Paco LeBron. And it's basically, what can we offer to our managed service clients to make their business and ours better? And that's really what we want to look at today, because a lot of people talk about managed services. They talk about break fix. They don't really get in the down and dirty and really try to figure out, is this something that I should be doing all break fix? Should I be doing all managed services? Should I be doing a hybrid, which most people do? And we're gonna break down a couple of those things. And so I want to start off with an email that we hadn't got to. I've got this email a few months ago, and every time someone becomes a Patreon supporter, I usually ask them a question, or if they send me an email, I ask them a question. Hey, what things would you like to hear about? And this person wrote me back, and they said, hello, Jeff. I've been invited to start managed services division for my friend's company. He does security cams, telecom, and home theater, and is looking to expand to computers. So any good advice for a fairly experienced IT professional moving into managed services would be great. And that is from Michael. Michael, thank you very much for that. So I've got a couple notes and then we're going to go ahead and we'll kick off some of the information. But basically, if you look at managed services, there's a real simple way to look at this. And we're going to look at an old commercial back from 1972, and it's the Fram oil filter commercial. I know you've heard me talk about it before. It's the pay me now or pay me later. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Everybody can check it out. It'll be it's a very simple video, but it actually explains the difference of paying for services now over time or paying for services only when there's emergencies. And so a couple of notes that I wrote down was break fix. If you're doing break fix in your business, you should be making more money because it's on demand, unique, and takes more time. So that's one of the things you have to think about. You get something in you've never seen before. It's unique because it's not something that you standardize in, because it's usually coming from a residential customer that bought something off the shelf at a Best Buy or a Walmart or wherever. And so it's going to take you more time and effort to actually figure out what's going on with that particular machine. Therefore, to me, it's your experience to be able to diagnose that and take care of the problem, but it takes time. And time is money, as a lot of people say, and it's true. So you really have to look at break fix. You should be charging enough to where, hey, it's worth it for you to take the time and effort to be able to do that. And we've talked about pricing before. You can go back and listen to other shows about that. But managed services is a fixed rate and regular ongoing maintenance. And it should take less time, and it is recurring income, which means that you have income coming in no matter what's going on. And so I think that both of these are very important to your business. It's nice to have that steady recurring revenue because you can know what costs are coming in so that you know what you're getting every month, every week. And then the break fix, obviously, there's still going to be emergencies. There's still going to be stuff outside of the scope of managed services. And that is still going to be, even though they don't call it break fix, it's still break fix. Something broke, you got to go fix it. Let's stop trying to make these things all these woo-woo words. Woo, yeah, this is great. I manage services. But if you look at the ideas behind these two concepts, I feel they're both important to your business. And I think that's something we're going to dive into. And we're going to talk about the things that we can provide for our customers that make our lives easier. And John, I'm going to go ahead and shoot it over to you.
Well, I'll just kind of run down probably the basic list of what I resell to customers generally. So this would be the general service that I would say 90% of my customers get from me on a managed service basis that I charge a separate line item for on their monthly invoice. So one thing I provide to my customers is remote access service. So I use Zoho Assist for this, and I manage their remote connectivity to endpoint PCs. Reason we use Zoho, very inexpensive, and the greatest thing about it is it's totally web-based, meaning the client doesn't have to download an endpoint agent, anything like that. It's very easy for me to manage and control from a web page from wherever I am. So just the basics. That would be beyond the customer that wants to set up like VPNs and has some other types of access. This is just, I want to be able to log into my PC from home just so I can see something. So we do remote access because we were getting a lot of requests for that, and I didn't want to give that money away. And it's a lot easier if I manage it and manage the passwords and everything, because they're going to lose them. Next on my list would be your UTM device, Calyptix, WatchGuard, SonicWall. If you're not reselling that on some sort of managed basis, I think you're losing money. So you should have something where you have a monthly fee that you're charging for that, whether you're doing it or you're doing it through somebody like Barracuda or Calyptix. I think that's a great way to add a little bit of money to your bottom line. See, SMTP services. We sell SMTP services using SMTP to go to a lot of customers for outgoing. Maybe they have an antiquated copier that doesn't support SSL, so you need a third-party service to do that. Or if they're going to use another service with a lot of outgoing SMTP and we want to keep it separate from their current domain, just a lot of reasons to use that. Just an easy way to have an outgoing mail server. Antivirus, I think that's one of the most basic ones. Bitdefender, Sophos, our friends over at Malwarebytes, you should be reselling that and making some money. You should be making money from your patching solution, whether that's bundled in with your AV or not. I think managed encryption is something you can make a little bit of money at that a lot of guys are letting slip through their fingers, meaning you're managing the encryption keys, you're verifying that those computers are encrypted at all times, and providing a monthly report based on which computers are encrypted or not. You can do that through Bitdefender and other solutions. One of the big obvious ones, G Suite or Office 365, you should be reselling that to your customers if they're users of those products. Another easy one that I really like is setting up secure email services if you're in the compliance world like myself. Protected Trust, AppRiver. We use a product called Pawbox for PAUBOX for our G Suite customers, which I really like. And that's an easy way to make a couple extra bucks on your monthly bill. Another one that I think a lot of guys don't charge for that I think they should because it's becoming more and more complex is DNS or domain management. You don't have to charge a lot for it, but once your customers start running into problems with DKIM, DMARC, or DNSSEC, and you have to fix those issues, it's going to get hairy and it's only going to get worse as time moves on. And I have links in the show notes on what all those things are if you want to look into that. And probably the last big one that I think is a moneymaker for a lot of customers or guys like us should be is you should be providing VoIP services. If your customers are going to get them somewhere else, you might as well be the one to helping them with that. I'm not sure what I missed. I'm sure Adam will probably add a couple more, so I'll toss it on over to him. And then we can circle back and talk about anyone you want to talk about.
Yep. So we're pretty much doing all the things that John just listed, sometimes with different vendors. So for our UTMs, we are using Untangle. VoIP, we just got started with Freedom Voice. One thing that we just got started with was Breach Secure Now, which is ongoing cybersecurity training. It's really quick tips, weekly tips that get emailed out to the users. They do a yearly security assessment. It's really inexpensive to get started with. And you can do fake phishing scams, those types of things. And as we all know, that's just going to get more and more important. But one of the key points I wanted to bring up is, we're doing all of these things, but we didn't start off doing all of these things all at once. You can start with any one of these on a monthly recurring revenue model and build from there. So for us, when we started our company, we were residential only. And so we started what we call our complete internet security plan. Now we were using an RMM tool. At the time we were using what was Max Focus. So now SolarWinds RMM. And so what that included was antivirus, patch management, and basic hardware checks. And we were charging $7.95 a month per user at the time, and now we're doing $9.95 a month. So when we were doing $7.95, we more than doubled our cost. And it was very easy to manage, all from a dashboard, and that was starting with residential customers, right? We would get an infected machine in, we would say, hey, for $10 a month, we can prevent this. If not, we'll take care of it for free if something gets passed, no big deal. And then as business went on, we transitioned more into business services, and then so you need to be careful with throwing a bunch of products all into one bundle at first anyway, because you want to make sure that you're comfortable with them. If you bring on a bunch of new products that you haven't used and you try to sell it and support it, it's going to be terrible for everybody. So slowly bring on products that you can add to your bundle, and build your bundles as you go.
That's good. Yeah, I think that's a very key point there, Adam, is that you really have to be aware of what you're doing. And everybody heard my debacle. I don't know whether it was last week or the week before, but where I talked about I flipped the switch in my RMM tool of choice, which is Ninja, and basically it bit me pretty hard.
Hey, Adam, I got a question, if I can, about your Breach Secure Now. I'm on their partner page, and is it just $99 a month for all your customers?
No. So they have two different plans. The
Okay.
unlimited training, and their packages are kind of weird. So they're unlimited training, which is basically a yearly assessment and some training material that you can go through. That is $99 a month for up to 5,000 people. Doesn't matter how many clients or how many. It's just 5,000 seats altogether. So, but the piece you really want is the breach prevention platform. So that gets you the weekly trainings and the weekly quizzes and a dashboard where you can see where people are doing their training, and managers can see what they call an employee vulnerability score. kind of like a credit score type thing where you can see who needs a little more attention and who's doing good, who needs a little more training. And there's the thing about that, so there's a leaderboard. I'm kind of 50-50 on that because you can see where you're at compared to everybody else. But if you're terrible, maybe you don't want everybody else to know that. But the way they say it is, it kind of pushes you to do better. However, that leaderboard is by screen name, not your actual name. But I mean, small offices, people are probably going to know who's who type of thing. But anyway, so the breach prevention platform piece that adds on to that, all those extra features, is, I think for 1 to 20 users is $25 a month. And then the next step up is $30 a month and things like that. But so really, to get started, you're looking at $125 a month. But that gives you 5,000 of the unlimited training and then 20 of the piece you really want.
Cool.
All right. I learned something new today.
Also, I don't know directly through them, but so we got signed up through PAX 8 and we got a 1 month free trial, so it's worth checking out.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about, because we just threw a bunch of services out there, and let's talk about the things that these particular services can do for us. And John, where would you start? What would be the most important things for you to start with?
Well, if I walked into a client or a customer that had nothing, I would probably we start with the fundamentals, the little things, which I would suggest is getting our RMM platform installed and then starting on the security basics, which would be probably the RMM and the AV and the patching, and then adding on some sort of UTM. So I would stand there. So I think a while back we had our show where we talked about security and antivirus, and we kind of said, well, let's build our castle. If we can picture the old castle when we were all playing Dungeons and Dragons, when popping our zits, we would, start at the beginning, build our foundation, and then we add walls and move out and dig our moat and all that kind of stuff. So that is where I would start. And then I would suggest, as adding on the other services, you're adding more layers of protection, kind of like, what do they call it? The onion of protection or the layers of protection. So I would start with the basics of, and I would also, this is the way I would also start my managed service company, I guess, would be is, finding my RMM platform, making sure it has my Windows patching at least, and then choosing my AV vendor. And then circling around and choosing whoever is going to do my UTM devices, and keep in mind that a lot of the times, depending on what vertical you're chasing, you might have to choose vendors that fit that price point or that feature point, or you might have to have more than one vendor. And do you want a product or a vendor like Calyptix that will do a lot of hands-on support, or do you have the staff already built in where you might want to use somebody like a SonicWall? Not that SonicWall doesn't have excellent support, but they just have a different type of support. And weigh the features and benefits of all those products as you move forward. Then, once you have that foundation built, then I think you can move on to some other items.
Okay. And Adam, so from your standpoint, obviously starting off in residential, kind of break it down to us a little bit more of what you were actually offering, and kind of dig into what makes sense, because a lot of people will say that they can't actually sell managed services. Nobody wants to pay for, especially residential people, don't want to pay for services. They just want to pay for it when it breaks. So what was and I know you kind of mentioned it, but go a little deeper into what was being offered, what you did, and when you talk about pricing and things like that, and what you were able to you're actually able to make money on it right from the get-go.
Yep. So I would say 90+% of the people that came in, the question that was always asked, how can I prevent this from happening again? Okay, we have a solution that offers peace of mind, that for $10 a month, we will take care of this, no questions asked. So that was a big thing. Now for us, what we had to do was we did managed antivirus based on Bitdefender, so we can make sure that the scans are being run, updates are being done. If malicious items are detected, we get alerted. So we have a much stronger security perspective on that than your standard user that may have an antivirus running or may not, or it may be expired, or they don't know and they're not paying attention and they're not running scans. They don't know if it's updated. There's a lot of pieces there where we offer the peace of mind. That was the biggest selling point, is we will just take care of this. We also can make sure that updates are being done. We can do automated tune-ups, clean out temporary files and things like that, all automated through our tools where we monitor and we let the customer know when something's found, and they don't have to worry about it. That's really the biggest thing that helped us sell it. One of the things, I've mentioned it many times, that one of the biggest things I used to say during residential virus removals is free just cost you $129.95. Because a lot of those users would use free antivirus, and it may not have been the free antivirus that was the problem, but they didn't know that it was their responsibility to monitor that application that was supposed to just fix everything. So we took that whole managed focus and sold that.
Okay.
Yeah, be careful. And Adam used a great word right there called managed. When we sell these services, keep in mind that you're building in the expectation that you're actually doing these things. So, legally, responsibly, morally, ethically, whatever you want to do, but mainly legally, you are now responsible. So, giddy up.
And that's a good point, John, too. And the other point I was going to bring is a lot of times, and we all get caught in this, right? If you haven't been caught in this, you're really not doing this business, where a customer will go, wait a minute, I'm paying you $10 a month. Why can't you fix this Outlook issue I have? Or why can't you fix this other problem that I had that has nothing to do with the core part of the business that we're managing for them? So Adam, how did you deal with that in the beginning? Because I'm sure that it came up.
So luckily it hasn't come up very often for us, but it has. But the reason for that is because right before we started our company, we were working for another local IT company that sold various IT products, and it was a constant battle of that. Well, I pay anywhere from $10 to $15 a month. Everything should be included. So we knew from that experience that, okay, we got to stop this before it happens with our customers when we got started. So we told them right up front, this covers antivirus and malware related only. Now, we were doing patching, we were doing tune-ups and all of those things, but they were informed right from the start that this does not include any repairs outside of malware. So we were very upfront with that. If it's a customer we don't see that often, and it may be a year between, because everything is just working for them at this point, sometimes we've had to remind them, and if we haven't had any issues with them, we may give them a break, if they're easy to work with, hey, it was only 10 minutes, no big deal, you've been a good customer, cool. But right from the start, all of our documentation, and we told them up front, because nobody reads documentation, that this does not include anything outside of malware removal for support.
Okay.
Also, keep in mind, Adam brought up another good point. I don't know if you realized it or not, that Adam's doing such a good job. If nobody's calling because he's doing his job so well, you're going to have to remind the client about what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just second nature that they're going to say, why am I paying for this? So, stay in front of them, maybe a little report that says, hey, look at all the stuff we did clean up, or the viruses that were blocked, or just, send them something with a lot of red on it. And then say at the bottom, have a green line that says, IT professionals of Iowa took care of you. So
for us, we just do newsletters. We do a couple a month, and to all of our customers, and we have some that are business focused and some that are residential focused. So that's how we stay in front of them, because we found reports, they either don't know what it is or don't care. They tell us, hey, if it's working, that's good enough for us. So we always send out information in newsletter form. So there's definitely multiple ways of staying in contact with people.
That's good.
On the business side, another thing that managed services can provide is hardware refresh cycles. You can stay on top of that and standardize, and there's something to be said for standardization. It makes everything run smoother. It's easier to troubleshoot. It's easier to know the environment. So you can get them on that as well. And that doesn't even have to be a cost thing. That could just be built in, hey, here's an added benefit to our bundle or our services. We'll get you on a hardware refresh cycle so that we know everything is under warranty, everything is running how it should. You don't have a 10-year-old machine that barely functions that everybody's depending on, so.
Yeah, that's good too.
That's also a good moneymaker. We talked about this in one of our Tech Brother meetups, where we said, a good PSA or a good documentation system would let you know when to replace UPS batteries, when to replace a lot of things to stay on top of. And it's a lot of time to get all that documented. But once you get on a roll with that, then you're just going to have automatic income, because you're going to have that stuff every month just to take care of. And your good clients will appreciate that as well. And then you'll have fewer truck rolls as well to put out fires.
Well, and John, let's circle back to a point that you made towards the beginning there, where you said you can make a little bit of money from this, you can make a little bit of money from that. And a lot of people will look at this and they go, okay, is this worth my time and effort? And I think one of the key things is you're not going to make a living necessarily off of just the products themselves, but you'll make a living with the labor and the things that you provide with those products and services. And that's part of what we do. So kind of go into that a little bit of kind of the things that you do on a regular basis to make your customers' lives, easier, and then to, also make your business life easier, even though sometimes it's not always perfect.
Well, no, I think in this world, we're always rolling a fire truck or rolling a truck or putting out fires for our customers, whether we like it or not, just because that's the nature of what we do. But the idea is to minimize that, to manage service provider as much as we can. So, I have my billing, the way that I bill is monthly, and I am a quasi all-you-can-eat MSP provider. So I have a flat fee of services, and then everything else we discussed is billed separately underneath that. So I have one bill for my time, and then I bill for all of these individual services. All right. And it's kind of a balancing act because we also don't want the customer to get the feeling that they're being nickeled and dimed to death for every little thing that they're doing. So, I'm always kind of concerned about that, and I'm always trying to balance that out as well. But the idea is that I know I'm making my money off what I would call my consulting fee. But the idea is, and then I go back to the saying that always makes me smile, and it makes me feel weird when I say it, that I'm trying to make my job easier for me, because I've been doing this long enough to know that if I make my job easy for me, that it's better for my client. That's just the way the math works. So if I could sit here and get my mani-pedi and sit in the hot tub all day, I know that means my customers are very, very happy because things are working. They're not having to put a ticket in to get a hold of me, blah, blah. So if I can get all this stuff documented and organized so that I know on tomorrow that I've got 3 UPS batteries to replace, and 2 weeks from now that I've got a UTM that needs switched out due to its age, and I can see that there's 3 old Windows 7 machines that if all of that stuff is scheduled and I can get that to it, and the magic word there is scheduled, get to it on my schedule, plan out my route, get to it, work around the customer's schedule, make them happy, and then stay in front of them to show them that all this proactive stuff is happening so that they don't have to call me. That just keeps everybody happy, and the customer healthy, and the revenue happy, because not only am I getting my consulting income, but I also might be getting a little bit of money from other income, these add-on managed services and or hardware items.
That's good. You made a good point too. You talked about being quasi all you can eat, because I know a lot of times people, and I've heard other people get beat up for the matter of fact that they do an all you can eat plan. In reality, unless you're really, really doing it wrong, there really is no all you can eat plan. Hey, everything's just included. It doesn't work like that. And you wouldn't be able to stay in business if you were doing that. So obviously you say that kind of a little tongue in cheek, but the reality is it's what works out there, and you don't have to nickel and dime for everything. The other thing too is, John, and you said it too, is that sometimes you will just add a service if it's a cost effective for you. You'll add a service in there that will make your life easier, and you also know the customer's being taken care of. So it takes time off of your plate where you don't have to do anything with that, because your life is just made easier by this thing that you put in. And that's
Well, a
smart.
lot of times, we just talked about this breach program, and if that was $99 a month and it was going to save me time and effort, let's say that we found some service that was $100 a month, and I do the math in my head and do my equations, and I said, well, boy, that's going to save me 4 or 5 hours a month. I might just provide that to my customer at no cost, and I might actually deploy it to all my customers. And I might actually then put a line item on the invoice that says, hey, look what you're getting, quote, zero, because I think that makes them feel good as well. So, you don't have to bill for every single thing. The idea is not to nickel and dime your clients to death. And it's actually worth paying for something, creating an expense line item on your books that actually, if you can do the math that says, hey, I'm making more by paying for this, then that is simple math as well. Now, the double whammy is, the beautiful thing is, if that item has enough value that you can actually save 5 hours a month and bill for it, then you get some big magic. But, be careful. You got to roll back to that one thing that your customer, if they're paying you a monthly fee and then all of a sudden they got 100 line items on their invoice, a lot of times that can trigger, you just got to be careful with that.
It's a balancing act for sure. Adam, I want to circle back around to when you were offering for residential services, residential managed services, and you were offering that because a lot of people they'll get skittish about this. You said free virus removal. So, so what was your process? What did you do? How did you handle those things when they came up? And how often did they come up?
So in the 3 years that we did solely residential, and so we're going on about 8 years now, and we're still doing the residential. All the customers we had before, we've had three that we had to fix for free, and they were minor. So what we found is if we were managing basically everything. Oh, we also, one thing we did is most of the time on the routers we would use OpenDNS, so that would help cut out as well. But we found if we were doing the patching and we were doing the automated tune-ups, and we also used Unchecky, I forgot to mention that, which will uncheck like add-on programs that get bundled with all kinds of things. So we found if we were doing all of these things, the patching, the antivirus, the Unchecky, so bundled programs weren't getting installed, the machines run pretty well. So it really wasn't a big issue. So we were confident enough in it after a couple of years to say, yes, we will do free virus removals. Now, lately, we've changed that to say we will repair a machine from ransomware, but we cannot decrypt your data most of the time. That's not included. So because that's something new, there's no guarantee on that. But that's where you throw in another service that you can charge for as backups, like JD had mentioned in the chat. You can do managed monthly backups.
Yeah, JD.
I wanted to roll back to just before you move on to backups on that patching. I think I just read 2 articles, and I think Gibson was talking about it on his podcast too. That I think it's like 80% or greater of known 0 days come in through lack of patching or infections. Not 0 days, just all infections come in due to lack of patching. So, I mean, if you guys want to save yourself some time, a good patching application, I mean, that's the way to go.
Yep.
You know what a really great feeling is when you get these ransomwares that are being spread by vulnerabilities that were patched months ago. You just send a newsletter or something out to your customers, or even a quick email. Hey, we got you guys covered. We patched this months ago. You don't even have to worry about it.
That's good. Yeah. Again, keeping them in the know. I also wanted to point out that JD John Reed in the chat room also said he has 150 residential customers paying monthly or yearly, and 170 business customers. So you can see a fair split between, hey, we got residential, because I think a lot of times people will look at residential, and here's what I hear in this community, and it disheartens me sometimes, because there are the people out there that are doing like John, mostly business. If he does residential, it's for the CEO of the companies that he's supporting or whatever, little one-offs. But there are a lot of residential customers that are actually willing to pay for services. You just have to find them. They're there because it's no different than a person who doesn't want to paint his walls or doesn't want to trim his shrubs or whatever. There are people that are willing to pay for these services. So, in a place like Florida, I think that's pretty good. Saying that residential people in Florida will pay for a service. So.
Well, and one of the things a lot of us ran into when we got started is we got the customers that we were charging for. Raise your rates until you get into the bracket of customers you want, or the customers that will pay. Get rid of the bottom feeders right off the bat.
And here's the thing too, if you have a problem customer, at the most, if you're doing month to month, number one, a lot of times you're going to have written in your contract that, hey, guess what? I can get out of this. At the worst case, you do it yearly, you do an annual billing, and you don't want to support that customer come year 2. Guess what? You have that ability. And if you're adding customers all the time to your services, does it really matter if you're letting a few go? That's the way you have to look at it. Let them go to somebody else. Actually provide them with a wonderful person in your area to go bother. No, you know what? I've heard people say that they do that stuff. I will never. I would just drop somebody like a hot potato and just walk away. They can fend for themselves, because I'm not giving somebody else my headache.
Yeah, careful, because you'll get that reputation from hanging out, dumping your garbage in somebody else's lawn. But you also brought up a great point that we should talk about with all of these services too. Keep in mind that no matter how good you are, that you're probably going to lose a client along the way, meaning because you want to fire them, or just they'll get absorbed, or maybe they're crazy and they think they can find somebody better. But keep in mind that you, on your end, you have to also keep into consideration making sure that you can pull all these services back. If, so that you're not getting billed for them if it's a bad breakup or if they're just jerks or something like that. So, if you deploy a Calyptix box and it's on site and they decide to go with somebody else, you need to get that Calyptix box back. So make sure that in your contract, in your information, or whatever you're doing, that that's not going to be a surprise.
John, let me ask you this. At the worst case scenario, let's say somebody locked their doors. They said, I'm not giving you this box back. You can't have it or whatever. Can you still, at least with Calyptix, cut off the service at that point and go, hey, it's done?
Well, Calyptix, I think, is the kind of company where you could have that sort of discussion. Like I still talk to one guy that still owes me money from the late 90s where, he just had a horror story, but, he had a huge company, or huge for the customers that I do. One day he came to work and the corporate entity that owned him said, we're done. He showed up and he didn't have a company anymore. Something that he had been running for like 15 years. The doors were locked, couldn't get in. We had just sold him like $20,000 worth of equipment and all that kind of stuff. This is a guy, I don't know if I ever told this story, but I actually still get a letter from him with maybe once a quarter with like $1.73 in it, because he's still not back on his feet. But he is the kind of guy that says, hey, I know I still owe you money. This is the percentage that I can pay off this month, blah, blah, blah. That kind of thing. But, I never got any of that gear back. We never saw anything. We never got anything. So, bad things can happen. So, and that was a great customer, and he's still a good customer, really, because it wasn't his fault and he's not ignoring me. But if there was a Calyptix box in that office, I was never going to get it back. So, just keep in mind, there are things that'll happen out of your control. Just be prepared for them, just like disaster planning. The other thing, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing too is you can also, like when you're doing a big project like that. Now, John, I don't know if you do this nowadays. I know we probably talked about it. Do you actually charge the customer for hardware before you actually put it in, or?
Now, for most of my standard customers.
Okay.
I bill monthly anyway, so usually just the timing of it, they're going to get a bill, 15 days from now or 30 days from now max. So by the time, if it's just a one-off, now if we're going to do some sort of $30,000 bunch of new servers and all that kind of stuff, I'll do a separate invoice and say, hey, just hit me with the hardware stuff, CYA a little bit and all that kind of stuff. Basically, probably from going back and being burnt before, but God forbid something happened bad like that again to one of my clients and I lose a laptop or an Optiplex, that's not going to be crushing to my business. But also keep in mind, if you're just starting out and, like many of us did, you're funding all this with your credit cards and all that kind of good stuff and all this, you don't get paid. You're still going to have to pay that money. So keep in mind.
Don't do, especially when you're starting out. Credit card's bad. Basically go out there and just charge them. Hey, write me a check, cash that check, make sure it clears, go buy your equipment, put it in, and it's you'll be much happier for that.
Yeah,
Adam?
We charge hardware and software up front after reading Carl Palachek's book. We've never had an issue. Nobody's ever said no or anything. They can't go and order something on Amazon without paying for it. So we don't have any issue. We're not a bank. We don't finance. So for us, it works out. We charge hardware and software up front. Now, what we'll offer to do, and nobody does it, is we'll split the invoice in two. So we'll do hardware up front, and then if it's a project, we'll do labor on the back end. Typically, they just want to pay it all at once and get it done with. So we're fine with that.
Yeah, don't take any grief from your clients on this either, because even if they go Dell Direct, no company's going to ship them the stuff without them paying for it. So why should you?
Exactly. Somebody in the past, I know this was common. Somebody said, "You're not a bank." I think it was on one of those other podcasts. But it is true. You are not a bank. All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll get into the rest of this subject. Our show today is brought to you by Reclaim Me Pro, a specially tailored data recovery toolkit for data recovery technicians, both beginners and experts. It recovers data from multiple file systems, including REFS, BTRFS, and VMFS. You can find your lost partitions. Nobody likes losing a partition. That can get very, very ugly. Recovers data from various RAIDs, from RAID 0 to RAID 6, which is very important. Also reads most partitioning schemes from Microsoft LDM to Linux LVM. It has a wide range of supported NAS models, including Drobo devices. A lot of people don't know this, but your NAS devices usually are not necessarily with the firmware they have installed doing a standardized RAID. Usually it's one that they have kind of made up for their particular product. You got to have a way to read that, if it's not a standard, right? So you have powerful RAID recovery and RAID analysis tools for complex RAID recovery. Comprehensive technical support, including data recovery training, which is your key to understanding partitions, file systems, and RAID recovery. Definitely you got to learn about what you're doing and how you're helping your customer by being able to know how you can help them as far as data recovery. Try it free for 14 days over at reclaimme-pro.com. When you decide to purchase software, use the offer code PODNUTS for a 50% discount. All right. So we're sitting here, we're talking about managed services and the things that we can do for our customers. And we've talked about a lot of great things as far as what we can do, different tiers we can start off at, how to not get stuck with either equipment costs or, free virus removals. I think we've kind of entertained a lot of that. John, I'm going to throw it back over to you. Is there anything else at this point that we could talk about as far as what are things in our business as far as managed services that make our life easier to be able to manage what we do for our customers?
Well, I think it's the same thing we've gone round and round here about several times. Everybody's always trying to find the magic RMM platform that solves all of their issues. Keep your mouth shut. And Lord knows I've tried enough of them. And Lord knows I still haven't found one that I love. But, in my business, last conference we were all at over in Chicago, a couple of the guys give me grief that I still do my ticketing through my email and all that kind of stuff. But that is something I'm going to change in 2019. So I got to jump on board with the PSA, get that a little bit more integrated, more purely from the fact that I want to be able to show more to my clients in this whole value proposition that we've been discussing and automate more of that communication with them. So I think some of the tools that you really need to focus on and you really stay away, in my opinion, maybe from the tools, but find out what you need as far as solutions. You got to have some documentation. You got to have remote management. So you're going to have to choose an RMM if you want to be an MSP. There's just no way around it. So you're going to have to find something there. So I think those are the primary two: documentation and RMM, and then you add on your PSA for your ticketing and your customer tracking. And I think the PSA brings in a lot of the aspect. You can figure out how you want to do it. Anything from Pulseway, PSA to Repair Shopper there is no lack of choices in the market right now. But adding that type of automation to you also brings in the things that Adam talked about and that we talked about is, expiration dates for products, managing service, not reacting to the service that you're providing. So with those types of tools, those are the foundations that then you can break out and provide all these other services that we're talking about. And keep in mind when you're choosing this, and we've gone around on this argument too in our meetups and all that kind of stuff. Are we all anxious to get the single pane of glass? So you choose the RMM provider that has the AV, the backup, and all that, your PSA, everything built into one system, which is great to monitor all for one. But let's say you want to change your RMM provider because you found something that fits your business model much better. Well, then you got to unwind all of those products from that RMM. So keep in consideration that maybe, just maybe, you're better off having all those products in their own panes and then somehow figuring out how to manage them through ticketing or something like that. Because then if you want to change one, you don't have to change everything. So just be careful. The magical single pane of glass can create more work for you as well.
Here's a little side note. There's no such thing as a single pane of glass, and there never will be. I said it here, 2018, December, late in the year. I'm just saying.
We had a whole show on that.
All right, Adam. So what about you?
So speaking of that single pane of glass, you get bonus points if your PSA and RMM work together. So we're actually going through an RMM change at this point. We were on the old Max Focus, the SolarWinds RMM. We moved over to N Central, and now we're moving back to SolarWinds RMM after a few years. I mean, we gave it we used it for a long time, and we kept hearing that. So we use for our ticketing, we use Repair Shopper, and we'd been hearing that it was going to be integrated with N Central since they're both SolarWinds products, and it just never happened. So we're going back, so our ticketing will be integrated. And we ran into some issues with N Central. Overall it's a good product. None of them are perfect, but we think the SolarWinds RMM is going to work better for us. Also, one thing I remembered on the free virus removals, we always had a clause from day one that if we felt the system was being abused, we could cancel the plan at any time.
That's
we were never even close to that. We've never dropped anybody for that, but we had that in there just in case.
So are you staying with Repair Shopper for ticketing, or are you going to look at the SolarWinds PSA stuff?
So I looked at the SolarWinds stuff. Now it's been months. It's been 6+ months since I've looked at it, but we really like Repair Shopper. We do all of our billing, invoicing, ticketing, documentation, everything in there. So we're going to stay with it at least for the time being.
Yeah, that's
and I gotta say, Repair Shopper, it's not for me, and it's not that I don't think it's any good. It's just left brain, right brain thing. It does not work for the way I think in process ticketing and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I tell you what, there's a lot of guys smarter than me, Adam, Paco. I mean, there are tons of guys using it that love it. So, I mean, if you don't have one, that would be a great place to start looking for a PSA. And plus, it does integrate with a lot of stuff. And they have a light RMM now with Synchro that has all the Repair Shopper features in it, I understand. And the pricing's right because it's flat fee. So if it will do what you need to do,
we looked at the Synchro MSP because of the integrations, but we really like the Managed Bit Defender and the backup that SolarWinds provides. So for us, it makes sense to stick with one of their offerings. But if you're getting started, Synchro MSP is definitely something to look at.
And there's a lot of you can get a lot of endpoint management on the antivirus side too that will do a lot of the things that you like that maybe is not it, and it might be that separate pane of glass. That it's coined something new. We're going to go from single pane of glass to separate pane of glass. But we've talked about this before, John, and that is sometimes these companies that are good at like one thing, that's what they absolutely should stick with instead of trying to appease everybody and trying to be good at everything. Because in my opinion, from what I've seen in the industry for a long time, is the more people expand out their product offerings inside that single pane of glass, most of the time there's like 70% that doesn't work. And the 30% that does work is the 30% that you want, but you got to put up with the 70%. So it's kind of like, what am I really paying for? It boggles my mind. But
that's one of the issues when we were working at the company before we started our company. They were more concerned about releasing new products than they were about making the ones that work well. And we were at the point where, you know what, we can offer this support better. We won't have a board of directors. We're not focused on money. Let's offer a good service and the money will come type of thing. And it's worked out for us.
Absolutely. That is definitely the way to go for sure. Okay. So,
I'll add on really quick to that too, Jeff, as I had to wake myself up there. If you use different products too, a lot of the products might have a couple of overlapping features. Like, here's a neat thing I really like. Sometimes maybe your RMM platform becomes disconnected or something, or for some reason you can't reboot a PC with a command from your RMM platform, or I've run into that. I can bounce over to Gravity Zone, and if I'm connected there, I can reboot a PC from there, but Defender's Gravity Zone. So, there are ways, if you're not in that single pane, that some of the products do have some overlapping features, which can save you in some aspects too. So keep that in mind.
I want to go to, there's a good question in the chat room from Rick, and he says, how much automation do you rely on from your RMM as far as issue resolving? From my understanding, if you really look at an RMM platform, an RMM is preventative ongoing maintenance. But as far as usually when there's an issue is a time that you've got to jump in and do something.
Yeah, for the most part. Now so one of the automation things we've used is like disk space. So if an alert goes off for disk space, it'll automatically run a disk cleanup type thing. But since we're doing our monthly temp file cleanups and stuff like that, it's not something we really run into. So I would say we definitely more focus on the preventative side than we do the reactive automations. You always hear people talk about automation, and so I sat down and looked one day, and well, it's like you said, there isn't much you can automate outside of what the maintenance stuff you're already doing. And if something needs done, you're going to have to work on the machine itself. So we don't really do a lot of like scripting or automation. We automatically do the scans for antivirus. We automatically do patching on certain schedules. We do reboots on certain schedules and things like that.
And here's one of the other things too that you have to think about that I think a lot of people don't think about, because a lot of these platforms will say, "Hey, we offer scripting." Okay, let me explain something to you. And this goes way, way back. Coders that are good at writing code screw their code up all the time. We, as lay people, have no business really coding any type of thing into a script format. Now, and I'm just being a little facetious, but the reality is we don't we get mad when a system doesn't work when we've got, well, wait a minute, I've got 50 scripts running. They all should run perfectly. No, it doesn't work that way. You might be able to run a handful of scripts that will do the job that you need to do, but the more and more complexity that you add to it, a system that's already doing all these different things, plus Windows doing all its certain things, you're fighting all these different things. So you got to remember there's only a certain amount of stuff that you're going to be able to maintain over time from what I've seen. And, I see this complaint all the time in the forums and whatnot.
So the SolarWinds products have what they call Automation Manager, and it basically allows you to drag and drop different pieces to build scripts. So it takes some of that complexity out of it. So that's kind of a double-edged sword, though. One, you can drag and drop whatever you want in there without knowing what's going on in the back end to make that work. But on the other hand, it allows you to make some scripts that you wouldn't also be able to do.
Correct. It's in my point to that is it's a balancing act. Like I think a lot of us have said so far, you've got to weigh the pros and cons with, is it making your life more complicated or is it making your life easier? And John, we've all ran into stuff like that, right? Where we've gone, hey, I thought this was going to make my life easier, and no, it didn't.
Well, I think you got to start at the beginning, and we can tie all this together, even into our PSA. So a good ticketing system will tell you the repetitive tasks that you're dealing with over and over again that you perhaps could automate. So do I think there's a good case for automation? Well, that's what you as a manager or business owner should do. So the way I look at it is right now when I get and it's more of just a feeling because I don't have a full ticketing system in place, nor do I have the history to go back and look. And that's why you categorize all these ticketing things too, so you can go back and look at the history. Again, garbage in, garbage out. But I approach it from the aspect of, okay, it just took me 15, 20 minutes to log into this PC. I had to interrupt the user. I had to fix it, blah, 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 blah. One, could this be automated? All right. Could I monitor a service? Could I have monitored something? In a magical fantasy world, that would have been awesome. Do I think a lot of those exist? Usually not on an endpoint unless it's a common thing. But there are some things on maybe server end where you can restart a service more frequently with things like SQL or stuff like that you can manage, that sort of thing. So no. But two, do I think scripts come into play? I do. And then where I think they come into play is maybe not so much more even on the automation aspect, but more on the repair aspect. So if I know it's something with printing, do I just have a PowerShell script that I can push from my platform while I'm on the phone without even having to log in that just resets the print spooler? I mean, most of the RMM platforms just have that built in by default. But if I can just click a button, I don't have to log in. I'm on the phone with the customer, or a ticket comes in and I can just say, hey, okay, try it now. I reset the print spooler. And I know that fixes it 90% of the time. Well, I just did a 2-minute repair, which saved me overall 18 minutes, and now I can move on. So, do I think it's a be-all, end-all, that automation? No. Do I think we all use it enough? No. But I do think there is some low-hanging fruit that you can pick. But again, no, it's not going to solve everything. Now, in some platforms, like in ConnectWise, I think Paco and I did a demo about a month or two ago. They have it all tied in with their PSA where the system detects something, there's an automated remedy, a ticket is created, a ticket is closed, and it is sent to billing and then invoiced all throughout the system. So if you want to get really fancy, it can be done, but then again, you need somebody to do that for you and set all that up.
And it's quite costly. Not saying that there's, again, it's a balance, right? Because you want to be able to, if you can provide the service and you're still making a good income on it, like John said, you got somebody that can manage that. That's not a problem. That's a good thing. That's a good problem to have. But you gotta weigh those things, and because a lot of people will look at the new shiny thing and they'll go, oh, that can do all this stuff.
Well, yeah, it's not even so much the cost of the platforms anymore because all of that has come down so much since 10 years ago. I mean, all these platforms are so cheap compared to what they used to be. The cost comes in is either in your time or paying somebody to get these platforms right and working for you correctly. You almost, depending on the size of your organization, should have a platform pro that knows your RMM inside and out, that you're sending to their training, because that's how you get your money back out of it.
Yep, I agree. And I just wanted to mention one other thing, and then we're going to let Adam have a few last words here. But as far as like when you do things like automated, if you think about virus removals, and let's say I have a managed customer that all of a sudden that said, "Hey, my computer's slow. I'm not really sure what's going on." It could be a myriad of things. It could be Windows 10 update. It could be there actually could be some stuff that our system had let through. Not very common. But the reality is I don't want to spend a whole lot of time there. Like John said, I just want to push a couple buttons. Now, for people that are on my services, I also, even if I'm using the RMM's remote, monitoring service, I also have instant house call. And what I'll do is I'll have that customer on unattended access, and I can go into the customer and I can start up Repair Tech, Repair Tech's tech suite, and I can basically hit the one button on there, and it runs a myriad of programs. And it could be a quick cleanup, a malware removal, whatever I have loaded in there, and I walk away and go do something else. And I could have several of those running on a computer screen, no problem, if I needed to. But like Adam said, it doesn't happen a whole lot. So it's like there are a lot of times they're one-offs, but it's still important to me to have something that's easy to use so I can get in and get out and I'm not spending a whole lot of time. Because everybody knows that you're always in the middle of doing something when some great catastrophe happens and you go, I don't have time for this. That happens to all of us. And it's just a reality of this business. There's good weeks, there's bad weeks, there's mediocre weeks, and that's just the way it is. So
Keep in
understanding.
mind too, if you're automating all of your repairs, keep in mind that a lot of times problems are systemic of other issues.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to track those automated repairs as well. So if you're fixing the same thing automatically on a PC several times, you should have other automations in place like smart monitoring, memory test, whatever you're going to do, because those little problems, just like on an automobile, that strange sound, that little click or something could be something that's happening, that's a bigger problem. So you don't want your automation to fix everything and then you to miss the big picture. So that's
That's
another thing
very
to keep
true.
in
Yep.
mind.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, you in one of those things too. That's a good point, John. Even when you're doing remote services like this and you're looking at a computer and somebody comes up with the thing of it's slow or whatever, you definitely should be doing some sort of hard drive checks, memory checks, all that kind of stuff, which you can do with a lot of these programs. And with Repair Tech, it's basically it shows a report and gives you all that information, so you can. And what's cool about it is you can look at it in real time, like it's each thing is
Well,
happening.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, Jeff, meaning the common complaint, my computer's slow. You should be able to automate that repair from your
Yep.
RMM. Adam already says they're doing it. They're cleaning up temp files, blah, 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 blah. Why not just have that automated repair every week?
Right.
So that your
That's
customer
true.
doesn't call, just like Adam said, so the customer doesn't call and say, my computer's slow.
Yep.
So if you can remove of all the problems, if we've got the 10 most common problems that happen on an end user's business PC, if we can resolve 7 of those, we just remove 70% of our service calls. So we're just waiting on those other 30, and we can master those some other way. Then we're just waiting for those one-off things that maybe we actually enjoy doing.
There you go. I like it. What were you going to say, Adam?
I was going to say, yeah, we do our monthly cleanups, which for businesses seems perfectly fine. May even be a little more often than what's needed, but what we don't want to run into is, like you were talking about earlier, is where we're doing so many things all the time that's going to cause performance issues because we're constantly trying to do things. So it's definitely everything's a balancing act. And another point is so we have all of these tools to automate our jobs and to make them easier and to make the customer's life better and have everybody have a better experience. But one thing is you can't only rely on those tools. For backups, you got to be reading the reports. You got to be paying attention to your dashboard. You got but with that, you also have to go in and adjust your thresholds on your RMM tools and things, so you're not getting constant alerts for things you shouldn't be, or you get to the point where you just start ignoring them, and then you're back to square one. So there's a lot of give and take, and it's all a balancing act for sure.
Very good. All right, we're going to wrap up here in just a quick sec. I'm going to give you guys a chance to give some closing thoughts on what we talked about today. Anything else that you want to add? But before we do that, if you would like to support what we're doing here, I urge you to go to patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And I want to thank one of our newest Patreon supporters, and that's Chad Davis. And we definitely appreciate our new Patreon supporters. And we always appreciate those Patreon supporters that have been with us for a long time. We thank you for your continued support. What that does is it gives you into a secret Facebook group. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The easiest way, if you become a Patreon subscriber, $1 a show, it's $4 or $5 a month at the most. And what that does, it gets you in a secret, safe Facebook group where you can interact with the two gentlemen on here and 96 others. So it's a safe environment where you can ask any questions you want. You won't be ridiculed. You won't be made fun of and all that kind of stuff. It's a nice place to be. So definitely go over to patreon.com/computer repair podcast and get started. And what you can do is once you do that and you sign up over there, you can basically give me a friend request on Facebook and I will friend you and then add you to the group. And that seems to be the easiest way for me to be able to add you on the fly. So, all right. So, John, any lasting thoughts on what we've talked about today? Anything that we've missed? Anything that we need to touch on before we get out of here?
Well, I'm sure we missed something, or I know I did, but I guess Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Feliz Navidad, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, however you celebrate. I hope it's a great one for everybody. And I'm looking forward to 2019, especially the TechCon, although I don't want to rush it, but I'm looking forward to that. And I just hope everybody has a great holiday with their family.
Awesome.
And friends.
Appreciate that. Yes. All right, Adam, you?
So I just want to reiterate, we've talked about all of these services and packages and things that you can offer with managed services. Again, focus small, start small, get an RMM tool, and go from there. Don't worry about having a huge bundle and offering everything all at once. If you do, it's going to be bad for everybody. Start small, get started with something that offers you monthly recurring revenue and a benefit to your customer, and grow from there.
That's good. I like that. Keep it simple, right? KISS.
I have a question. Weren't you going to play the Fram commercial?
No, I'm not going to play it. People can go on YouTube and watch it. It's
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's
You're talking about the guy that rolls out from underneath the car.
You got it. That's the one, man.
Yeah, I love that commercial.
It's an awesome commercial.
1972, guys. I forgot. Somebody's had this figured out since 1972.
Yeah.
So.
And it's straight to the point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's straight and to the point. So that's awesome. All right, so yeah, these concepts have been around for businesses for many years. We since we're technology based, we love to pretend that they started here, but I don't care what anybody says, they didn't. But they've been around since probably a lot of them since the beginning of time, really. These are not new. All right, so
beginning of time, really?
Well,
okay. If you can sell that, I'll buy it.
I could sell anything. That's what my wife tells me. Okay, so yes, I appreciate what we've been able to do over this last year, and I second what John has said and basically say everybody enjoy your holiday season, and Merry Christmas, and all the others. Definitely take the time, relax. Don't be running around with your hair on fire. Just sit back, relax, enjoy some time with family, friends, some video games if that's your thing, some sports for those that watch, football and other things. If that's your thing, hey, you know what? Relax and do that stuff, because you've got to have that time for you, and then be ready to go into 2019 for another phenomenal year. And the other thing too is I would look to this community is such a helpful group of people. It's nice to have others that you can not only hear on these shows, but you can also talk to them. You can email them. You can have a conversation back and forth, and you can get some of your questions and things answered. There's not a whole lot of places that you can do that safely. Um, so just keep that in mind, and that's why we continue to do what we do here. So, John, I'm going to shoot it over to you real quick. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
You mean the CRP group? There's been a lot of good posts. I'll pick on Keith Rosa. He had a great post this week, which a lot of people jumped on. So that was great. It's just fun to see what everybody else is going through and to try to help or just listen or give a thumbs up. So that's awesome. Or john@mavengroup.net if you need to poke me directly.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Adam, you?
Support at itproiowa.com, or I'm in the Facebook group as well.
Awesome. All right, come
Does
join
that
us.
get me in a ticket queue, Adam? Does that add me to the ticket queue? What priority am I? What priority do I get if I go to support it? Never mind.
So it won't put you in a ticket queue. What it will do is Repair Shopper will create a lead and say, "Hey, do you want to turn this into a customer and create a ticket?"
That's a good point, because
that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, I meant that and that's the way you do it. That's awesome.
That's good. Yeah, because a lot of people probably wonder why people have several different email addresses when it comes to their business. Usually their first name at whatever the company name is or website name is, right? And support, sometimes info, et cetera, et cetera.
Billing.
Depends on what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't ask to be snarky. I asked because I knew Adam was doing it right.
No, it's a good point, but a lot of people
everybody gets on me. Come on, geez.
Everybody
making a point.
is
It's what we were
wondering.
talking. Wasn't that our show topic this week? We're going to talk about our New Year's resolutions is what we're going to do.
I'm saying it's a good point, John.
All right. Merry Christmas. Right. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks. Sorry.
Can I finish up the show now?
Yeah, go right ahead. I'm done.
You sure?
Yeah, okay. I'll begin.
Okay. You sure? All right. All right. Come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, except not for the next 2 weeks, over at podnuts.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. You can chat and add to the show, add to the conversation in there. It's a lot of fun. You can also send an email to podnuts@podnuts.com. You got a question or something, man, shoot it on over. We will answer it on the show. Or if you want to leave a voicemail, you can do that too, 734-335-1000. And I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.